I just want to talk a little bit about the WHO, the World Health Organization. And I want to read a quote from my book, actually. It's the first quote in my book, and it says, "Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity." And that was written by the World Health Organization in 1948. So it's changed a little bit now, and we're going to dive into that a bit. But you must have, when you went to work for the World Health Organization, you worked for them for 9 years, I believe, and you never took any funding from the big pharmaceutical companies.
No, I want to just highlight that I have no conflicts of interest. I've never taken funding from pharmaceutical companies. And so it's kind of why my work was always valued, because I could declare no conflicts of interest with the WHO work as well.
And that's quite rare, isn't it?
Yes, it's very rare. It's sort of, I've been an academic outside of academic institutions and outside of the corporate pharmaceutical industry too.
When did you realize that the WHO was maybe not what you thought it was?
Well, you know, some years ago, I had a real sense of frustration because I wanted to make a difference. It was why I was excited about my work there in the first instance, because it felt like one could make a difference on a large scale, became to realize that we were just sort of putting band-aids on things, and we weren't really affecting health and improving health at a grassroots level. So I wasn't sure how it could be different and what we could be doing differently, what I could be doing differently. But I certainly was more and more disillusioned sort of in the late 2000s, 2018, 2019. And I also started to see the influence of private industries. So there was a lot of lobbying for funding from the Gates Foundation, for example. And when that money came in, it was for certain projects rather than for what might be assessed as necessary. So there was that, and there was pushback. I started to see pushback when we made a recommendation that was unpopular, that there would be pushback from the Gates Foundation or groups linked to the Gates Foundation. So I was increasingly concerned about the influence of, in particular, the Gates Foundation on the workings of and on the output of the World Health Organization.
Yes, I think a lot of us have those concerns. And I just want to talk now about the fact that we have the WHO treaty coming into Parliament. And I want to talk a little bit about that and then move on to what seems to be an even greater concern. So can we just unwrap that for a bit?
Yes, well, I think people don't realize that it's not just this WHO treaty that is the issue. There's a number of documents that are in the process of being amended or drafted afresh to empower the WHO with the power to really influence individual health around the world in a negative way by removing the rights of people to be free to make their own choices, and to sort of, under the sort of what they're calling a One Health approach, make recommendations and mandates for any number of things that affect our health, animals, and the planet. So we're seeing the real broadening of scope through these documents. Now, two complementary documents are the WHO Pandemic Treaty, also called the Accord or the CA2+, and they keep changing the name so that we're not, so to keep people confused. But the other one, which is actually more important because it's an existing document, is the International Health Regulations from 2005 and the amendments that are being proposed on that with respect to this document. Now, this is a document that was drafted in 2005, and in it, the WHO advises and countries can choose whether to follow the advice or not. It's a legally binding document. But in the amendments, there are a number of amendments that actually make the WHO recommendations legally binding. So it changes from advisory to legally binding and mandatory. And countries are obliged to implement what the WHO recommends on a broad scope of what they call public health emergencies of international concern. And this ranges from pandemics to climate emergencies to a wide range of emergencies that the Director General of the WHO then has the power to call. And they don't have to be actual emergencies. They can be potential emergencies too. So, we saw with the monkeypox pandemic last year that the Director General of the WHO overruled his committee, which recommended against declaring a pandemic for monkeypox. And monkeypox was declared on his whim. And then obviously it just sort of faded into the ether when it was clear that there was no pandemic at all. But that was just a very real example of what can happen when so much power is invested in actual fact one person who is really of the current Director General is really of ill repute anyway, and but no one should ever have that amount of power. And so what we're seeing is these documents are actually they're being used to construct a corporate government out of the World Health Organization. So by empowering the World Health Organization, which is actually increasingly corporate run by unelected and unidentified, supranational organizations and individuals. We're seeing that this is being used as a vehicle to do that, and pandemics and whatever fakes they're called, the public health emergencies of international concerns, they are being they're tools really to make people fearful and acquiesce and comply with whatever new thing comes out. And I know I'm talking a lot, but on the last thing, if I could just say the real risk, because many people think, oh, well, my government won't do this, and so what, so if our politicians say, we're not going to lose our sovereignty, well, I'm going to just trust them. What people need to realize is that what this new system does is it actually empowers our governments to mandate all sorts of measures on us that give them tremendous power. And they say, well, it's not our fault. We have to do this because we're in this legally binding agreement for the sake of the world, the greater good, and we're a part of this agreement. And so we have to lock you up, lock you down, inject you, mandate all manner of things for the sake of the planet and other things. So it's really to realize that it gives our governments power over us, which they quite like.